moving our eye from cooperation to trade and investment and the challenges to come. We welcome right now the founder and CEO of RENTCO Africa. It's Mr. Robert Nyasimi. Hello, Mr. Robert.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you see me? Is everything working fine?
I'd like to say that we're almost ready for our next intervention. I don't know. I'm going to switch to the Portuguese
You
right
are
now.
listening to me, Mr. Robert?
Vou falar pouquinho português agora, porque nós estamos recebendo aqui muitos comentários e muitas participações
Mr.
nas
Robert,
redes
are you
sociais.
with the YouTube channel open?
Lembrando que há 3 canais com
Yes,
tradução
I'd like
simultânea.
to ask you to please close the YouTube channel you are following the broadcast, okay? Please stay only with the Zoom meeting room. Is it possible?
It's gone.
Yeah, I think it's best this way, okay? Can you hear me better now and see me also?
I am yet to see you.
Perfect, Mr. Robert. Thank you.
See you.
Yeah, you're going to see me in a moment. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to start, Mr. Robert, talking a little bit about the main goal of our talk is to try to address a little bit about the investments and finances and this relation regarding Brazil and Africa. Can I continue? Okay, so we are talking about building some awareness around opportunities in Africa, Mr. Robert. So how do you feel is this in this moment right now? Not only specifically related with Brazil, but looking for the road, a global approach about building some awareness in the opportunities we have right now in Africa.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very delighted to be part of these discussions. My area of expertise or the area operating is in the area of lease financing. And that comes in as a very useful tool in terms of trade finance, both inbound and outbound opportunities for Africa. And as you rightly said, Brazil offers a lot of opportunities that Africa can learn from in the area of agriculture and other manufacturing equipment. And through that partnership or technology transfer, I see a lot of collaborations between Brazil and Africa.
We can talk at this point, Mr. Robert, regarding some kind of alternative financing models. So do you think is it possible to try to accelerate productivity in many fields? In which fields do you identify more potential for this moment, in this moment of the pandemic?
Okay. One of the first example that comes to mind, again, I would look at leasing as an alternative financing, and we call it alternative to the traditional banking products. I'm a banker by training, so I pretty much understand the majority of the banking solutions that are out there. But when you look at leasing as a way of enhancing trade finance, yes, there is a lot of opportunities. First of all, is that it facilitates the importation of goods and equipment into Africa, and if properly done, and you stretch the limits of leasing, where you're now able to contract for the leasing of equipment from source, which is really the next growth of leasing as a product, because ordinarily leasing company will lease an asset that has already arrived in country. But some of the things that can be done is where the leasing company or the intermediary that is undertaking leasing, you can lease ex works the factory, meaning you are able to take ownership of the equipment from the factory, arrange for the LC. Either you can appoint the lessee as the agent in importation, or you do the importation yourself. And then when the equipment lands in any African economy, an LC could be a 365 LC, which then amortizes into or crystallizes into a leasing product. If that is done, then instead of breaking this alternative way of financing where a customer has to go out and arrange his own LC financing, and all that is bundled together as a leasing product, then that really helps in terms of facilitating the importation of technology from Brazil to Africa. The other thing that we could look at, as I said, it has to be looked at inbound and outbound, because that is the only way you can realize proper balance of payments, is that if some of the leasing companies can look at working capital as another way of financing that eventually leads to leasing, then you can look at where you do distributor finance, either through a floor plan mechanism, and when the goods land at the dealer or wherever is selling those equipment in Africa, then now you put in a leasing to the end user. So if you arrange working capital for some of the stockists, or you want to look at importers of equipment, and they're able to import in bulk and put on their floor space, or you import and put into a bonded warehouse, and whenever the end user now buys the equipment or the motor vehicle, whatever asset it is, then the leasing picks out of there. That way, you can actually increase the trade between Brazil and Africa. Thank you.
Boosted up in this moment by the pandemic, for example, that can be a real opportunities, that can be a way for the people to try to recover from the crisis.
Come again on that question. I lost you a bit there.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, I can.
Sure. I was asking about, for example, the kind of services that you identify, do you see as the ones boosted by the pandemic? For example, we have the digital sector, we have some opportunities for also SME. So in your opinion, what are the kind of services at the moment right now?
Coronavirus has really highlighted the crisis of trust between governments, people, buyers and supplier organization, products, processes and projects. Never before such a non-financial key performance indicator had such an impact on financial outcome in such a way, which really highlights the importance of the interlink between the need for a new paradigm shift in how we look at the world going forward. So that said and done, is that it is really important that whatever financing model that will increase trade looks at this, is that we need to find a way of creating trust in the supply chain. And part of the example I keep giving, or I keep thinking about, is that if you look at even some of the multilateral lenders or external lenders that lend money either through the EXIM, the EXIM sort of financing, is that one of the key criteria before financing was released, if there was no local intermediary, there was a need to do a customer visit. You have to know who your customer, and one of the way was to visit a customer to view the business. Now, with coronavirus or with this pandemic, I foresee a situation where that sort of traveling is going to be curtailed. Business travel will be based on essential. I mean, I don't advocate for that. Otherwise, how will the aviation industry recover? But those visits are going to be limited. So if we can find, or if any economy can create some intermediaries who can do site visit on behalf of exporters or importers to Brazil on behalf of either an importer or an exporter, that will really help in creating this trust in this area of alternative finance. Another thing that we need to remember is that if the other thing that can actually improve in terms of increasing trade between Brazil and Africa is that, for example, the company that I run is called RENTCO East Africa. We've managed to create a leasing partnership with one of the development banks called Trade Development Bank, who have now appointed us as their leasing agent. And what that does is that previously all these credit lines that come from different countries, whether you could talk about China or even Brazil for that matter, you give lines that, say, tractors are bought from Brazil, they'll come with financing. But of course, you need an intermediary like Trade Development Bank. So a line is placed to Trade Development Bank. By the time Trade Development Bank deploys this money to the end user, it was taking so long. So what the Trade Development Bank is, they've only lended this money to a leasing company like RENTCO. And now our turnarounds are faster, and we are starting to see the uptake of equipment that are imported much faster. So that again will help in terms of negating the effects of coronavirus. First, because lines are given to a development bank like Trade Development Bank, who has an agent or a leasing partner that deploys that capital. So that's one way of mitigating the effect of coronavirus. But that said and done, we are in a new environment. It's a new P in the marketing mix called pandemics, and it will be an evolving scenario, and all importers and exporters, intermediaries have to come with new ways of mitigating or creating that trust, whether it's through blockchain technology so that you can trace the importation and exportation of goods. Digital space will going to be, or digital intervention is going to be critical in creating that trust among exporters and importers. Thank you.
And Mr. Robert, specifically regarding the possibilities around Brazil and Africa relations. So what are your thoughts on how the investors from both sides can look to each other right now? Brazilians looking for Africans and Africans looking for the Brazilian. How should they approach each other at this moment?
At this moment, the way I would say is that Brazil, you have certain advantages that Africa need, especially in the area of agriculture. Now, then Africa has a lot of arable land, and we require a lot of equipment in terms of realizing the agricultural potential of Africa. And I'm just not limiting to just equipment. I'm talking about factories and the whole value chain in terms of agriculture. Now, so the traditional way that Brazil has interacted with Africa, maybe, and that's why I keep saying that needs to be looked at differently, because you come to Africa and you sign a credit line, say, with the Ministry of Finance of a particular country. And out of that, you say, okay, fine. What you're going to do, we are going to give, say, 5,000 farm implements through that credit line. Now, if this equipment comes, for example, under a government-to-government scheme, then the problem that always comes in is that the government will distribute this equipment to the farmers who've been identified, where there are farmer groups or things like that. But if it doesn't come with the right, there's always the after-sales support or working capitals and things like that. You find within 3, 4, 5 months, all those implements are not operational. Then, everybody will start asking questions, did we get value for money, or what happens? And those are the kind of things that impede this sort of government-to-government transaction. However, if that can still remain on government-to-government, but then you go through a leasing entity that not only ensure that this equipment is deployed, but it will also ensure maintenance and other related services are included, and it takes responsibility for that. Then the equipment's life goes 3 or 4 years the way it's supposed to do. And then you see that because it's operational and the benefits are realized, that will encourage a lot of that growth of business or imports from Brazil. So it's just the way you say, follow the chain and go to the end user. So that helps give confidence to a particular country and to its citizenry, to the citizens of that country, that the solution they got from Brazil works. So that's what I can say about it.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. I don't know if you have some final remarks to add, because we have reached the end of our intervention at this moment. I'd like to thank you once again and hear from you your final remarks for this intervention.
My final remarks is that there's a lot of opportunities to interact with Africa, but that interaction has to go an extra step. As I say, you have to have the end user in mind. Remember, the end user derives benefit by using that asset. So whatever package that you are coming up to enable export of equipment into Africa, go all the way to the local person. And if you can't reach there, encourage the government to have a proper implementation strategy, because once it is successfully implemented on the ground, then that trickles up and shows that the solution that was obtained achieved the desired results. So with that, my parting shot is always very, very easy. And I always tell this to any of my customers. It's not related to probably trade, but I always say leasing. So if it depreciates in value, lease it. If it appreciates, own it. So that's my parting shot. Thank you.
Mr. Robert, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm assuming that this was your first time participating in the Brazil-Africa Forum, right?
This is my first time, and I appreciate the opportunity, yes.
It was the first one to start. From now on, you are going to be a frequent visitor from here. You're welcome. Thank you very much, Mr. Robert.
Okay, thank you so much.